The hum of the airplane engines vibrated through the dimly lit cabin, a relentless reminder of Amara's impulsive decision. She clutched her 6-month-old son, Chinedu, to her chest, his tiny body squirming against her as she tried to hush his restless whimpers. The red-eye flight from Lagos to Abuja, hastily booked to attend her cousin's critical business meeting, now felt like a catastrophic mistake. Amara's eyes stung with exhaustion, her body aching from the weight of motherhood and the gnawing uncertainty of her future. Each of Chinedu's soft cries pierced her like a needle, amplifying the question that haunted her: how am I going to provide for him? The cabin was a blur of strangers, their faces shadowed in the low light, some already asleep, others engrossed in their screens. Amara felt utterly alone, a single mother navigating a world that seemed to conspire against her. She adjusted the thin blanket over Chinedu, her fingers trembling slightly. The decision to board this flight had been born of desperation. Her cousin, Nkechi, had insisted her presence was non-negotiable for the deal that could secure their family's financial future. But now, with Chinedu's fussing growing louder, Amara questioned everything. "Sure, my love, please," she whispered, her voice cracking as she rocked him gently. The elderly woman in the seat next to her shifted uncomfortably, her lips pursed in silent judgment. Amara's cheeks burned with embarrassment. She was failing, not just as a mother but as a woman trying to hold her life together. The weight of her choices pressed down on her, leaving her village, chasing a better life in Lagos, only to end up jobless, unmarried, and now, on a plane she could barely afford, with a crying baby and no clear path forward. She glanced out the window into the inky blackness, the stars obscured by clouds. "What am I doing?" she murmured to herself, her voice barely audible over the drone of the engines. The regret was suffocating, but there was no turning back now. The plane reached cruising altitude, and with it, Chinedu's discomfort escalated. His whimpers morphed into piercing wails that cut through the cabin like a siren. Amara's heart raced as she tried everything she knew, bouncing him on her knee, offering a bottle, singing a soft lullaby her mother had taught her. But nothing worked. Chinedu's tiny face was scrunched in distress, his cries growing louder, more desperate. "Sure, Chinedu, please, my baby," Amara pleaded, her voice trembling. She could feel the eyes of the other passengers boring into her. A man in a crisp suit across the aisle sighed audibly, his irritation palpable. A young woman with earbuds shot Amara a glance that seemed to say, "Can't you control your child?" The cabin, once a cocoon of quiet, now felt like a stage where Amara was the unwilling performer in a tragedy. She fumbled with her diaper bag, pulling out a pacifier, then a rattle, but Chinedu swatted them away, his cries unrelenting. "I'm so sorry," Amara whispered to no one in particular, her voice thick with shame. The elderly woman beside her finally spoke, her tone sharp. "You should have thought about this before bringing a baby on a night flight." Amara's stomach twisted. "I didn't have a choice," she said softly, more to herself than to the woman. The words felt hollow, a weak defense against the judgment surrounding her. She wanted to disappear, to melt into the seat and escape the weight of those stares. Her hands shook as she tried to soothe Chinedu, her mind spiraling. "I can't do this. I'm not enough." The cabin lights flickered slightly, and the pilot's voice crackled over the intercom, announcing turbulence ahead. Amara's heart sank further. Of course, she thought bitterly. Even the skies are against me. Chinedu's cries reached a fever pitch, and Amara felt tears prick her own eyes. She was unraveling, and there was no one to catch her. Just as Amara felt herself teetering on the edge of collapse, a calm, steady voice cut through the chaos. "May I try?" She looked up, startled, her vision blurred with unshed tears. In the aisle seat, a man in his early 30s leaned forward, his dark eyes warm with concern rather than judgment. He wore a simple navy blazer and a kind smile that seemed to radiate a quiet strength. His name, she would later learn, was Adekunle. I don't know," Amara stammered, clutching Chinedu tighter. The idea of handing her son to a stranger felt reckless, but there was something in Adekunle's demeanor, his steady gaze, the gentleness in his voice, that made her hesitate. "He's just upset," Adekunle said softly, his voice barely audible over Chinedu's cries. "Sometimes a new face helps. I've got a nephew about his age. I'm Adekunle, by the way." Amara swallowed hard, her instincts warring. But the exhaustion, the desperation, won out. "Okay," she whispered, carefully passing Chinedu to him. The elderly woman beside her raised an eyebrow but said nothing. Adekunle cradled Chinedu with surprising ease, his large hands gentle as he rocked the baby against his shoulder. "Hey, little man," he said, his voice low and soothing. "What's all this noise about, Don't tell me you're not a fan of flying already." He began to hum a soft tune, one Amara vaguely recognized from her childhood, a Yoruba lullaby that felt like a warm blanket. To her shock, Chinedu's cries began to soften, his tiny fists unclenching. Amara watched, her breath caught in her throat, as Adekunle continued to hum, his movements steady and unhurried. The cabin seemed to exhale with her, the tension easing as Chinedu's wails faded to soft whimpers. Amara's disbelief grew as Adekunle reached into his carry-on bag and pulled out a small, brightly colored toy truck. Its red and yellow plastic gleamed under the cabin lights, and Chinedu's eyes widened, captivated. He reached for it with chubby hands, his whimpers replaced by curious gurgles. "Where did you get that?" Amara asked, her voice a mix of awe and gratitude. Adekunle chuckled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "My nephew's obsessed with trucks. I keep one in my bag for emergencies. Seems like this qualifies." He handed the toy to Chinedu, who clutched it tightly, his tiny fingers exploring its wheels. Amara felt a wave of relief so profound it nearly brought her to tears. "Thank you," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I didn't think we'd make it through this flight." Adekunle smiled, handing Chinedu back to her now that he was calm. "You're doing better than you think," he said. "Kids pick up on our stress, you know? You're holding it together for him, and that's what matters." Amara blinked, his words sinking in. She hadn't felt like she was holding anything together, but his kindness made her want to believe it. She settled Chinedu in her lap, the toy truck keeping him occupied. For the first time since boarding, she felt a flicker of hope, fragile but real. "Do you travel with toys for every crying baby you meet?" she asked, managing a small smile. Adekunle laughed, a warm, infectious sound. "Only the ones who look like they're planning a mutiny. Your boy's got a strong set of lungs. Future musician, maybe." Amara's smile widened. "Maybe. Or a future pilot, so he can get revenge on these bumpy flights." They shared a quiet laugh, and for a moment, the weight on Amara's shoulders felt lighter. The elderly woman beside her softened, offering a tentative smile. The cabin, once hostile, seemed to warm slightly, as if Adekunle's kindness had rippled outward. With Chinedu now contentedly rolling the toy truck across Amara's lap, an unfamiliar calm settled over her. The cabin lights dimmed further, and the hum of the engines became a soothing backdrop. For the first time in hours, maybe days, Amara could breathe. She stole glances at Adekunle, who had returned to his seat, flipping through a magazine but occasionally looking over to check on them. "Thank you again," she said after a few minutes, her voice steadier now. "You didn't have to do that." Adekunle shrugged, his expression easy. "We've all been in tough spots. Sometimes a little help goes a long way." He paused, then added, "You're traveling alone with him? That's brave." Amara's throat tightened. Brave. She felt anything but. "I don't have much choice," she admitted, her voice low. "It's just us. I'm trying to figure things out, but," she trailed off, unsure how much to share with a stranger. Adekunle nodded, his eyes thoughtful. "It's a lot, I'm sure. But you're here, on this plane, doing what you need to do. That's more than a lot of people manage." His words were simple, but they landed like a lifeline. Amara felt a warmth spread through her, a reminder that she wasn't invisible, that someone saw her struggle and didn't judge her for it. Chinedu babbled softly, his tiny hands gripping the truck, and Amara's heart swelled with love and determination. She didn't know what lay ahead in Abuja, but for now, in this fleeting moment of peace, she felt like she could keep going. "Do you have kids?" she asked, curious about the man who'd turned her nightmare flight into something bearable. Adekunle shook his head. "Not yet. Just a nephew who keeps me on my toes. But I've got a soft spot for kids. They remind you water all this time. You're stronger than you know." The cabin of the red-eye flight from Lagos to Abuja had settled into a fragile calm, the hum of the engines a steady backdrop to Amara's newfound moment of peace. Chinedu, still clutching the toy truck Adekunle had given him, babbled softly, his earlier distress a fading memory. Amara stole another glance at Adakunnel, who was now sipping a cup of tea. His demeanor relaxed yet attentive. The weight of the flight, the judgment of strangers, and her own self-doubt still lingered, but his kindness had carved out a small space for hope. Curiosity nudged her to break the silence. "So, what do you do?" she asked, her voice tentative but genuine. "You seem prepared for everything." Adakunnel chuckled, setting his tea down. "Prepared? Hardly. I just try to be ready for the unexpected. I'm a tech entrepreneur, mostly software solutions for small businesses. Just coming back from a conference in Lagos." Amara raised an eyebrow, impressed despite herself. "That sounds important. Do you like it?" "It's challenging, but yeah, I love it," he said, his eyes lighting up. "There's something about helping businesses grow, giving people tools to make their lives easier. It feels like you're building something that matters." He paused, then added with a grin, "Plus, it funds my toy truck collection for fussy babies." Amara laughed, the sound surprising her. It felt good, like a release of tension she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "Well, your collection saved my sanity tonight." "Good to know it's not just gathering dust," Adakunnel replied, his tone warm. He leaned forward slightly, his voice softening. "What about you? What's your story, if you don't mind me asking?" Amara hesitated, her fingers tightening around Chinedu's blanket. Sharing her struggles with a stranger felt risky, but Adakunnel's openness disarmed her. "I'm figuring things out," she said carefully. "I moved to Lagos a couple of years ago, thought I'd find work, build a life. Then Chinedu came along, and everything got complicated. I'm here for my cousin's business meeting. She says it's a big deal, but honestly, I'm just trying to keep my head above water." Adakunnel nodded, his expression free of judgment. "That's a lot to carry. But you're doing it. That's no small thing." His words, simple as they were, stirred something in Amara. She wanted to believe him, to see herself as someone capable, not just a woman drowning in responsibility. Before she could respond, Adakunnel's face lit up with a new thought. "You know, I support a foundation that might interest you. It's called the Seed of Hope Initiative. They focus on empowering single mothers, education, skills training, that sort of thing." Amara blinked, caught off guard. "A foundation? For people like me?" "Exactly," Adakunnel said, his voice earnest. "They offer programs to help women start businesses, learn trades, even provide childcare support. It's practical stuff, not just talk. I've seen it change lives." The idea sounded almost too good to be true, like a lifeline dangling just out of reach. Amara's mind raced with questions, but doubt crept in. Could she really trust this? Was it worth hoping for? She managed a small nod. "That sounds amazing. I'll think about it." Adakunnel smiled, sensing her hesitation. No pressure. Just something to consider. Their conversation flowed easily after that, touching on lighter topics: Chinedu's love for mashed yam, Adakunnel's disastrous attempts at cooking egusi soup. For the first time that night, Amara felt like more than just a struggling mother. She felt seen. As the plane began its descent into Abuja, the cabin lights brightened, and passengers stirred, gathering their belongings. Amara felt a pang of reluctance. This fleeting connection with Adakunnel had been a reprieve from her chaos, and now it was ending. Chinedu, still engrossed in the toy truck, yawned, his eyelids drooping. Adakunnel reached into his blazer pocket and pulled out a sleek business card, its edges crisp and professional. He flipped it over and scribbled something on the back with a pen. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "This is my card, but on the back, I've written the contact for the Seed of Hope Initiative. The director's name is Mrs. Fatima. She's incredible. Just give her a call. See if it's a fit." Amara took the card, her fingers brushing against its smooth surface. The weight of it felt significant, like it carried more than just ink and paper. "Why are you doing this?" she asked, her voice soft but searching. "You don't even know me." Adakunnel shrugged, his smile gentle. "I've been lucky in life. My mother raised me alone, and she didn't have it easy. If I can help someone else avoid some of that struggle, why wouldn't I?" His words hit Amara like a quiet thunderbolt. She nodded, unable to find the right response. "Thank you," she finally said, her voice thick with emotion. "For everything." "Keep that truck for Chinedu," Adekunle added, nodding at the toy in her son's hands. "Consider it a good luck charm." The plane touched down with a gentle thud, and the cabin erupted into the usual flurry of activity. Amara tucked the business card into her purse, her mind buzzing with possibilities. As she gathered her things, she stole one last glance at Adekunle, who offered a warm nod before disappearing into the crowd. Stepping off the plane into the cool Abuja night, Amara felt a strange mix of emotions. The chaos of the flight had faded, replaced by a quiet resolve and the weight of Adekunle's card in her purse. Chinedu, now asleep in her arms, felt heavier, his warmth grounding her. The airport terminal was a blur of fluorescent lights and hurried travelers, but Amara moved slowly, her mind elsewhere. She replayed Adekunle's words about the Seed of Hope initiative. Could it really be a way out? A path to something better for her and Chinedu? Doubt gnawed at her. Programs like that often came with strings attached, or they were too good to be true. Yet, something about Adekunle's sincerity made her want to believe. His kindness had been real, unforced, and that alone gave her pause. As she waited for a taxi outside the terminal, the night air crisp against her skin, she pulled out the card and studied it under the glow of a streetlight. Adekunle Ojo, CEO, Innovate Solutions. On the back, in neat handwriting, the Seed of Hope Initiative, Mrs. Fatima Adebayo, +2348091234567. The simplicity of it was disarming, but it carried a promise she wasn't sure she was ready to trust. "Amara," a familiar voice called, snapping her out of her thoughts. Her cousin Kechi waved from a sleek black car, her face lit with excitement. "You made it! How was the flight?" Amara forced a smile, tucking the card away. "Eventful," she said, climbing into the car with Chinedu. As they drove toward Nkechi's apartment, Amara's mind lingered on the card, the foundation, and the stranger who'd given her a glimmer of hope at 30,000 feet. The next morning, Amara sat in a sleek conference room in Abuja's business district, feeling out of place among the polished professionals. Nkechi's meeting was for a real estate deal, a partnership that could secure her company's expansion. Amara's role was to take notes and offer moral support, but her mind kept drifting. Chinedu was with a babysitter Nkechi had arranged, a rare luxury, but Amara's thoughts were split between her son and the business card burning a hole in her purse. Nkechi, ever the commanding presence, led the meeting with confidence, her voice sharp and persuasive. "This project will redefine affordable housing in Abuja," she said, gesturing to a sleek presentation on the screen. Amara scribbled notes, but her heart wasn't in it. She kept imagining a different life, one where she wasn't just a bystander, where she could build something of her own. During a break, Nkechi pulled her aside, her eyes narrowing. "You okay? You seem distracted." Amara hesitated, then decided to share. "Someone on the flight. He told me about a program for single mothers. Training, grants, that sort of thing. It's called the Seed of Hope Initiative." Nkechi raised an eyebrow, skeptical. "Sounds like a scam. You sure this guy wasn't just trying to impress you?" "I don't think so," Amara said, her voice firm. "He was genuine. He gave me a contact to call." Nkechi sighed, softening. "Look, I know things are tough, but be careful. Focus on this deal for now. It could mean stability for both of us. We'll figure out the rest later." Amara nodded, but as the meeting resumed, Adekunle's words echoed louder than Nkechi's. "It's changed lives." The idea of taking a chance on herself, on a future where she wasn't just surviving, was both thrilling and terrifying. By the time the meeting ended, with handshakes and promises of follow-ups, Amara knew she faced a choice: play it safe or dare to hope. Back at Nkechi's apartment that evening, Amara sat on the edge of the guest bed, Chinedu asleep beside her. The business card lay on the nightstand, its edges slightly worn from her fidgeting. She'd been turning it over in her mind all day, weighing the risks against the possibility of change. Nkechi's warning lingered, but so did Adekunle's sincerity. Finally, with a deep breath, she picked up her phone and dialed the number. Her heart pounded as it rang, each second stretching into eternity. Then, a warm, steady voice answered. "Hello, this is Mrs. Fatima Adebayo, the Seed of Hope Initiative. How can I help you?" Amara's words tumbled out, nervous and halting. "Hi, My name is Amara. I was referred to you by Adekunle Ojo. I'm a single mother, and he said you might have programs that could help me." Mrs. Fatima's voice was like a balm, calm and reassuring. "Adekunle's a good friend of ours. Tell me about yourself, Amara. What's your story?" Amara recounted the chaotic flight, Chinedu's meltdown, and Adekunle's unexpected kindness. She spoke of her struggles, her dreams of becoming a caterer, and her fear of failing her son. As she spoke, she felt a weight lift, as if sharing her story made it less overwhelming. Mrs. Fatima listened patiently, her silences encouraging rather than judgmental. "You've been through a lot," she said finally. "But you're still standing, and that's a start. Why don't you come to our office? We can talk about what we offer and see how we can support you." Amara's heart leaped, a flicker of hope igniting. "Really? I mean, yes, I'd love that." As she hung up, the room felt brighter, the future less daunting. The business card, now tucked safely in her wallet, was no longer just a piece of paper. It was a key to a door she hadn't dared to open. For the first time in months, Amara felt like she was taking a step forward, not just treading water. Amara's heart fluttered with a mix of nerves and anticipation as she stepped out of the taxi in front of the Seed of Hope Initiative's office in Abuja. The building was modest but welcoming, with a colorful mural of women holding hands painted on the exterior wall. Chinedu, nestled in her arms, gurgled softly, his toy truck clutched tightly. The business card from Adekunle, now creased from constant handling, had led her here, and the weight of this moment felt monumental. Inside, the office buzzed with quiet energy. Women of all ages moved purposefully, some typing at computers, others laughing over cups of tea in a small break room. The air smelled faintly of jasmine, and a receptionist greeted Amara with a warm smile. "You must be Amara," she said. "Mrs. Fatima's expecting you." Amara was ushered into a cozy office where Mrs. Fatima Adebayo sat behind a desk cluttered with papers and a framed photo of a smiling family. Her presence was commanding yet kind, her eyes crinkling as she stood to shake Amara's hand. "Welcome, Amara," she said, her voice as warm as it had been on the phone. "And this must be Chinedu. What a handsome boy." Amara smiled, relaxing slightly. "Thank you for seeing me. I wasn't sure what to expect." Mrs. Fatima gestured to a chair. "Sit, please. Let's talk. Adekunle spoke highly of you, and from our call, I can tell you're someone with a lot of heart. Tell me more about what you're hoping for." Amara hesitated, then poured out her story, her move to Lagos, the struggle to find work, the unexpected joy and burden of motherhood. She spoke of her love for cooking, how she'd once dreamed of running a catering business, crafting meals that brought people together. "I've always loved feeding people," she said, her voice soft but earnest. "But I never had the money or the chance to make it real." Mrs. Fatima listened intently, nodding occasionally. "You have a passion, Amara, and that's a powerful thing. Our program is designed for women like you, women with dreams but without the resources to chase them. We offer training, mentorship, even childcare so you can focus. What do you think? Would you be interested in exploring that?" Amara's breath caught. The possibility felt like a lifeline, but doubt lingered. "It sounds incredible, but I don't know if I can do it. I've got Chinedu, and I'm barely managing as it is." Mrs. Fatima leaned forward, her gaze steady. "You're already doing the hardest part, showing up for him. Let us help with the rest. We have a creche on site, and our programs are built to fit around your life. You don't have to do this alone." The words sank in, and Amara felt a flicker of hope, fragile but growing. "Okay," she said finally, her voice trembling with resolve. "I want to try." Mrs. Fatima smiled, handing her a pamphlet. "That's all we ask. Come back next week for an interview. Let's see how we can help you turn your passion into a future." As Amara left the office, Chinedu babbling happily, she felt lighter, as if the weight of her fears had shifted just enough to let her breathe. A week later, Amara returned to the Seed of Hope Initiative, her stomach a knot of nerves. She'd spent the days preparing, practicing answers in front of Nkechi's bathroom mirror while Chinedu napped. Nkechi had been skeptical but supportive, even offering to watch Chinedu for the day. "Just don't get your hopes up too high," she'd warned. But Amara couldn't help it. Hope was all she had. The interview room was bright, with sunlight streaming through a large window. Mrs. Fatima sat across from her, joined by two other women, both introduced as program coordinators. "Tell us about yourself, Amara," Mrs. Fatima began, her tone encouraging. Amara took a deep breath, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I'm a single mother, and my son, Chinedu, is my world. I've always loved cooking. It's how I show love, how I connect with people. Back in my village, I used to help my mother cook for weddings, and everyone said my jollof rice was the best. I want to turn that into something real, a catering business maybe, but I've never had the chance to learn properly or start something." The coordinators exchanged glances, nodding. One of them, a woman named Chioma, leaned forward. "That's a great foundation. Have you ever thought about what kind of catering you'd want to do? Local dishes, fusion, maybe events?" Amara's eyes lit up. Local dishes, definitely. Things like egusi soup, pounded yam, maybe some pepper soup with a twist. I want people to feel at home when they eat my food, but I also want to make it special, you know. Mrs. Fatima smiled. "That's a vision. And it's clear you've got the drive. Our culinary and entrepreneurship program could be a perfect fit. It's intensive, 6 months of training in cooking techniques, business management, and marketing, plus mentorship to launch your own venture. We also provide childcare, so you can focus." Amara's heart raced. "That sounds perfect. But how does it work? I mean, can I afford it?" Mrs. Fatima's smile widened. "You don't pay a dime. The program is fully funded through grants and donors like Adakanal. If you're accepted, you'll get a scholarship, including support for Chinedu's care. All we ask is your commitment." Amara's breath hitched. It was almost too good to be true, but Mrs. Fatima's sincerity was undeniable. "I'm in," she said, her voice firm. "I'll do whatever it takes." By the end of the interview, Mrs. Fatima stood, extending her hand. "Welcome to the program, Amara. You start in 2 weeks." Amara left the office in a daze, her heart soaring. For the first time, she saw a path forward, not just for survival, but for a dream she'd buried long ago. 2 weeks later, Amara walked into the training center, her palms sweaty but her head held high. The classroom was alive with chatter, a mix of women from different walks of life, all united by a shared hunger for change. Chinedu was settled in the on-site creche, his giggles echoing as a caregiver played with him. Knowing he was safe gave Amara the freedom to focus, a luxury she hadn't known in months. The instructor, a stern but passionate chef named Mr. Kola, began the session with a booming voice. "This isn't just about cooking," he said. "It's about building a business, a legacy. You're here to change your lives." As he spoke, Amara noticed a familiar figure at the front of the room. Adakanal stood there, addressing the group, his presence as calm and commanding as it had been on the plane. "I'm here because I believe in what this program does," he said, his voice resonating with conviction. "You're not just learning skills, you're building futures for yourselves and your families." Their eyes met, and Amara's breath caught. Adakanal's face lit up with recognition, and he gave her an encouraging nod. After his speech, he approached her, his smile warm. "You made it," he said. "I knew you would." Amara blushed, overwhelmed. "I can't thank you enough. That card, it changed everything." "You're the one doing the work," Adakanal replied. "I just pointed you in the right direction. Keep shining, Amara." His words fueled her determination, and as the class began, she felt a fire ignite within her, a purpose she hadn't felt in years. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind of learning. Amara threw herself into the program, absorbing every lesson like a sponge. Mr. Kola taught them advanced cooking techniques, how to balance flavors, plate dishes elegantly, and source ingredients sustainably. The entrepreneurship modules were equally rigorous, covering budgeting, marketing, and customer relations. Amara scribbled notes furiously, her mind buzzing with ideas for her catering business. She bonded with the other women, their shared struggles forging a sisterhood. There was Ifeoma, a widow with a knack for baking, and Zainab, a young mother who dreamed of opening a food truck. They swapped stories of sleepless nights and small victories, their laughter and tears weaving a tapestry of resilience. One evening, over a shared pot of stew in the training kitchen, Ifeoma nudged Amara. "You're glowing, you know. This program's bringing out something in you." Amara smiled, stirring the pot. I feel alive. Like I'm finally doing something for me, not just surviving. That's the spirit, Zainab chimed in, her eyes bright. We're going to run this city with our food, watch. Their camaraderie fueled Amara's drive. Each new recipe she mastered, each business plan she drafted, felt like a step toward a future she could believe in. Balancing the program with motherhood was no small feat. Mornings began with rushed feedings and diaper changes, followed by a dash to the training center. The creche was a godsend, with caregivers who doted on Chinedu, teaching him songs and games while Amara studied. Still, guilt gnawed at her. Every hour away from her son felt like a betrayal, even if it was for their future. One afternoon, after a grueling session on cost analysis, Amara picked up Chinedu from the creche. He toddled toward her, his face lighting up. "Mama!" he squealed, clutching his toy truck. She scooped him up, her heart swelling. "You're my reason," she whispered, kissing his forehead. The exhaustion was worth it, she reminded herself. Every late night studying, every moment of doubt, was for him. Back at Nkechi's apartment, her cousin noticed the change in her. "You're different," Nkechi said one evening, watching Amara sketch a logo for her catering business. "More sure of yourself." Amara smiled, her pencil pausing. "I'm starting to believe I can do this. For me, for Chinedu." Nkechi nodded, her skepticism softening. "Then keep going. You've got something special, Amara." As Amara tucked Chinedu into bed that night, his tiny hand wrapped around her finger, she felt a quiet strength. The road was still long, but she was no longer alone. She had a community, a purpose, and a dream taking shape. Amara's days at the Seed of Hope initiative became a rhythm of growth, each one building on the last. Her culinary skills sharpened with every lesson, perfecting the smoky depth of her egusi soup, mastering the art of puff-puff that melted in the mouth, and experimenting with fusion dishes like plantain fritters with a spicy mango glaze. The entrepreneurship classes fueled her ambition, teaching her how to price her services and market her brand. But it was the small victories outside the classroom that truly transformed her. One evening, Amara decided to test her skills. She cooked a batch of jollof rice and peppered chicken for Nkechi's neighbors, a small group who'd heard about her training. The aroma filled the apartment, drawing curious glances from passers-by. As she served the meal, her hands trembled slightly, but the feedback was immediate and overwhelming. "This jollof is divine!" exclaimed Mrs. Okeke, a no-nonsense woman from down the hall. "You've got magic in your hands, Amara." Another neighbor, a young lawyer named Tund, took a second helping, grinning. "If you start a catering business, I'm hiring you for my sister's wedding." "No question." Amara's cheeks flushed with pride, her confidence swelling. "Thank you," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I'm working on it." Back in the kitchen, cleaning up with Nkechi, Amara couldn't stop smiling. "They loved it," she said, almost in disbelief. "They actually loved it." Nkechi nudged her playfully. "Of course they did. You're not just cooking, you're telling a story with your food. Keep going, Amara." The encouragement lit a fire in her. She started small, taking orders for birthday parties and office lunches in Nkechi's neighborhood. Each successful delivery, each glowing review, chipped away at the self-doubt that had once defined her. She began to see herself not as a struggling single mother, but as a woman with a gift, a purpose, and a future. One night, as she tucked Chinedu into bed, he clutched his toy truck, the same one Adekunle had given him on that fateful flight, and babbled, "Mama, cook!" Amara laughed, kissing his forehead. "Yes, baby. Mama's cooking a new life for us." The months flew by in a blur of recipes, business plans, and late-night study sessions. Graduation day arrived, a milestone Amara had once thought impossible. The training center was transformed, adorned with colorful banners and tables laden with food prepared by the cohort. The air buzzed with excitement, families and friends filling the room with chatter and laughter. Amara stood in a tailored Ankara dress, her heart pounding with pride and nerves. Chinedu, now a lively toddler, sat in Nkechi's arms, waving his toy truck and shouting, "Mama!" every time he caught her eye. The sight of him, so happy and carefree, made her chest ache with love. Mrs. Fatima took the stage, her voice warm and commanding. "Today, we celebrate not just skills, but transformation," she said. "These women have faced challenges most can't imagine, and they've emerged stronger, ready to build futures for themselves and their families. When Amara's name was called, she walked to the stage, her steps steady despite the tears prickling her eyes. Mrs. Fatima handed her a certificate, her smile radiant. "You've earned this, Amara. The world is waiting for what you'll do next." The applause was deafening, but it was Chinedu's enthusiastic clapping that brought a lump to her throat. As she returned to her seat, Ifeoma and Zainab pulled her into a group hug, their own certificates clutched tightly. "We did it!" Ifeoma whispered, her eyes shining. After the ceremony, Amara mingled with the other graduates, their families, and the program staff. The room was alive with hope, each woman's story a testament to resilience. Amara felt a sense of belonging she'd never known before, a community that had lifted her up and given her wings. As the crowd thinned, Amara spotted Adekunle across the room, chatting with Mrs. Fatima. Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't seen him since that first day of the program, but his presence here felt like a full-circle moment. Gathering her courage, she approached him, Chinedu toddling at her side. "Adekunle," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I owe you so much." He turned, his face lighting up with recognition. "Amara, look at you, graduated and glowing." He knelt to Chinedu's level, ruffling his hair. "And you, little man, still got that truck?" Chinedu grinned, holding up the toy proudly. Amara laughed, then grew serious. "That day on the plane, I was at my lowest. Your kindness, that card, it changed everything. I wouldn't be here without you." Adekunle shook his head, his expression humble. "You did the work, Amara. I just saw something in you, a spark. You've turned it into a flame." They talked for a while, Amara sharing her plans for a catering business, Adekunle offering insights from his entrepreneurial journey. "Start small, but dream big," he advised. "And don't be afraid to ask for help. You've got a community now." As they parted, Amara felt a profound gratitude, not just for Adekunle, but for the chain of events his kindness had set in motion. She hugged Chinedu close, whispering, "We're going to be okay, my love." Inspired by her own transformation, Amara vowed to give back. A few months after graduation, she returned to the Seed of Hope initiative as a mentor, eager to support the next cohort of women. She stood before a group of nervous new participants, their faces mirroring the uncertainty she'd once felt. "My name is Amara," she began, her voice clear and confident. "A year ago, I was where you are, scared, unsure, thinking I'd never be enough. But this program, these people, they showed me I was wrong. You're stronger than you know, and you're not alone." She shared her story, the chaotic flight, Adekunle's kindness, the grueling but rewarding months of training. The women listened, rapt, some nodding, others wiping tears. One, a young mother named Blessing, approached her afterward. "I don't know if I can do this," she confessed. "I've got 2 kids, and I'm barely holding on." Amara took her hand, her voice firm. "You can. It's hard, but every step you take is for them. Start small, just like I did. You'll surprise yourself." Mentoring became Amara's way of honoring the help she'd received. She spent evenings helping Blessing refine her business plan, sharing recipes with other ments, and celebrating their small victories. The cycle of hope that had lifted her was now one she helped sustain, and it filled her with purpose. 3 years later, Amara stood in the kitchen of her catering business, Amara's Kitchen, a bustling hub in Abuja's vibrant food scene. The space was modest but alive with the aromas of sizzling meats and simmering stews. Her team, 2 former Seed of Hope graduates, worked alongside her, prepping for a high-profile wedding. Orders poured in daily, from corporate lunches to family celebrations, each one a testament to her hard work and vision. Chinedu, now 4, scampered through the kitchen, his toy truck still a constant companion. "Mama, taste this," he called, holding up a piece of puff-puff he'd sneaked from a tray. Amara laughed, kneeling to take a bite. "Perfect, Chef Chinedu," she teased. Her life wasn't perfect. There were still late nights, financial worries, and the challenges of single motherhood. But Amara faced them with a confidence she'd never known before. She'd built something real, something hers, and it was thriving. One evening, as she closed up shop, she found Adekunle's business card in an old purse, its edges worn but intact. She smiled, tracing the handwritten number on the back. That turbulent flight, Chinedu's tears, and a stranger's kindness had been the spark that changed everything. Now, as she locked the door and took Chinedu's hand, she looked to the future with gratitude and certainty. The chaos of that night had led to triumph, and Amara knew she was just getting started. The end.